Hi, Middletown. Back with you again. This is Jim Palenick, City Manager, and we're doing our special updates with the City Manager. I've got a really exciting guest with me today, and that guest is David Rachie. David is a partner with Main Street Community Capital, and he represents the development group that the city has been working with now for quite some time on developing a very major downtown riverfront redevelopment project. And I will remind everybody that some months ago, the City Council entered into an agreement with David's firm to do some due diligence on what we thought could be a very significant, transformational, and dynamic downtown riverfront redevelopment project. And we thought that it could potentially house a hotel and convention center and the potential for actually other mixed-use opportunities. But the question always became, what does that look like? What will the economy, the market economy say about that? What is the appetite for financing? And how would a developer see that? Is it profitable? Will it make sense? Because obviously the city doesn't want to enter into something if it isn't going to work for the long term, be sustainable, and obviously be profitable for an individual developer. So we engaged David's firm with the idea that they would go through a whole series of due diligence efforts and determine exactly what might work there. And if so, then put together the kind of development agreement that would work for both his firm and the city and put us on the path to something that would be very exciting. So with that as a preface and lead in, David, we now kind of are nearing the end of that due diligence process. What can you tell us about sort of what you found as you've looked at this prospect for this development?
Well, one of the things that we really like about Middletown is just it has a phenomenal core foundation within the downtown area. It has great buildings around it, which is where we like to work in. We like to be able to work in a downtown that at one time was really bustling. And, we know that downtown Middletown, we can see the historic photos on just regular days. People are walking around, they're shopping, and we want to bring that back. And one of the ways that you do that for a place like Middletown, where a lot of it has been cut off because of the freeway, is you got to give people a destination to come back down to downtown. So those are the type of projects that we like to do. We don't do greenfield. We don't like being outside of downtown core areas. We like to be right there and be able to bring that kind of development that is going to be a destination, which is going to get people to drive. It's really not that far off the freeway, right? It's just, down Roosevelt. So we get them down there, and that's what we like to do.
And then speaking of that sort of destination, and I've kind of been surprised by this, but you found some interesting demographics, like how many people actually live or could reach Middletown, like within, say, a 2.5-hour drive time.
Right. So one of the reasons when we look at kind of redeveloping, we're looking for destinations, not just for the region, but for a super region. So it would be 2.5 hours. And what's really unique about Middletown is when you take into effect the fact that 2.5 hours encompasses Indianapolis, Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus, you have one of the highest concentrations in the Midwest of population. So you have almost 18 million people that are within 2.5-hour drive time. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that we have a development that is going to be a destination where someone's going to say, oh, 2.5 hours, I'll easily drive that to get there. And one of those ways that we'll be doing that is through live events, live music events, other types of live events. Those are what people like to drive into and come and go to a different place. So part of the destination not only will be the hotel and convention center, but there will be a live music venue as well as another type of live event center.
So what you're saying then is you believe the prospect does exist to build a hotel and convention center and opportunity for live music and entertainment on this particular site downtown in Middletown?
Absolutely. And it'll help, what's already down there. Sorg's already down there. The group that's been working with them has been doing a great job renovating the Sorg Opera House. And they already bring people to downtown through their events. But we want to step that up. We want to make sure that we can bring in some national events that come in and be able to perform, as well as, you know, what the SORG already brings into downtown. The other aspect of it is I think there's a lot of residential need in terms of market rate housing. So we think that we'll probably see at least 350 units right around there come into that type of mixed use development.
So for the folks out there trying to envision, you know, what this means to Middletown or downtown Middletown, or how this sort of takes shape, or what the schedule is like, give us a little bit more sense to, you know, how do we move potentially forward on such a project like this? I'm assuming this is a pretty large scale project the way you're describing it.
Absolutely. I think there's two things. I think if people wanted to look at a similar type project in the country that's going up right now, would be in Nashville Yards. And while it's going to probably be on a smaller scale than that, and we aren't going to bring in the kind of office space because Middletown can't support that type of office space, but the residential, the entertainment district, if you will, of Nashville Yards is the type of project. So one of the things we'll be doing is we'll be presenting to the council the plan with renderings and all of that in October. And then one of the things we're working with your staff hard, and they're doing a great job, is putting together a development agreement so that we know exactly as we come in what we're going to be able to do and what we're going to be able to put up. And part of that is what we've been working on now, which is assembling additional land over and above what the city already owns in the downtown district, and really kind of be able to bring this development to Main Street while maintaining the, you know, the charm and the atmosphere and the look that downtown Main Street already has. So the facade will be much older looking type buildings, but behind that will be a modern entertainment mixed use residential project.
And I think what many people don't realize is that you and I, and actually a number of others, have been working on this project for a very long time, because it's complex. It takes a lot of different entities coming together, a lot of different aspects to a capital stack. And one of the things that I think the public needs to know is that, you know, from the city's perspective, what helps us make this work really is, number one, the state of Ohio has quite a number of economic development incentives that are available to us that will really make a difference in this project, from tax credits to something called the New Community Authority to many other opportunities. And then layered in on that is the fact that with the American Rescue Plan Act, the city has some significant funding that's going to allow us to inject some of that in as a one-time sort of capital jumpstart that will assist some of this. And then the way a lot of this will be structured, the project itself will produce revenues that will then pay over time to provide those things that the city has to put into it. So this will not burden the taxpayer. And that's critically important for me to let the public know, that this is a very creatively financed situation. It will use some resources that we didn't expect to have and now do. And it will look to the project itself to produce a lot of new revenues. But we will not be, for instance, taking dollars away from the general fund or things that otherwise would be necessary for the city in order to make this happen. So that's what's exciting for me and the community at this time. And I think the public probably wants to know too is, you know, is your company and the folks that you deal with, you know, prepared, or do you believe they're prepared to, you know, bring the kind of financing to the table that will be necessary to make a large scale project like this work? And if so, tell us a little bit why you feel, you know, kind of optimistic that that can come together.
Well, as you know, it's a challenging environment. So with banking, and we've sat down and we've talked to a lot of the national banks and talked through, you know, what we're doing. And one of the things that I will say that, you know, we've had to rethink some of the ways that we typically do things in the past, because we're in a new environment. And one of those is really just kind of taking in a different type of investor, someone that has a much more longer term. So we've been working with actually the top 5 of the top 10 pension funds in the country, who like what we're doing, and they'll take that long-term view. So it's not, hey, what does this look like in 2 or 3 years? It's what does this look like in 20, 30 years? So that's one of the things that we've been able to do. So we've reached out. We're continuing to work with new pension funds. So it's about bringing in, life insurance companies, pension funds, people that have a long-term view of the economy and where things are going in the country.
And obviously, everybody's concerned about a pandemic, and the pandemic has really hit the hospitality, the entertainment industry hard, anything responsible where large groups of people come together. Are you at all concerned about the future and, investing a lot of money in a project like this at this point in time?
So a couple of things about that. As you know, you mentioned there's some funds that are out there because we've had this pandemic, and a lot of that money has been targeted to the hospitality industry, which has been hard hit. And so that's giving us some resources to move forward with this project, as you know, both for the city and as well as us as developers. The other side of it is that I think we've gone through this. And I think we now have a roadmap as to how you best handled pandemics in the future. And I think what we'll see is if this happens, and unfortunately it may, but if you go by history, these hit every 100 years. So hopefully we're in a 100-year cycle with this. But if something like that happens again, I think there'll be a lot less. There's a lot more planning on the government side as well as the private industry side and how to minimize the impact going forward.
Can I ask you also, and maybe this is part of the case, that is there also something to be said for this kind of super regional destination that you can drive to instead of flying to, that maybe will be better suited for a post-pandemic world? I mean, does that make some sense?
Well, I will tell you that it's one of the reasons why people are getting very excited about our projects, because they're all set up as a super regional drive-to location. The airline industry has rebounded a little bit, but it hasn't rebounded much. So what you're going to end up happening, and what we saw in this pandemic, is people were doing road trips. I mean, you couldn't rent or buy an RV if you wanted to. So it is absolutely one of those things that people will do. They will go to places, but they're gonna want to drive. And I think that trend is going to be around regardless of another pandemic coming or not. And that's really kind of one of the sea changes we've seen in how people vacation. And as you know, we are involved in another company that is a vacation company, and we've seen that trend really shift very quickly. We have about 20,000 people that we can see their patterns. And I think what the most important part of that was, we had people that are in April of 2020, which is April is our biggest travel month for vacations. We had 95% cancellations, but this is a vacation savings program for employees, and none of them took their money out. They left them in their vacation savings accounts. And what we saw last month was our biggest month ever, and people are spending that money. So people will go and they will travel, and you might get these little dips once in a while. And that's why we're working with investors that look at the long-term view. So again, people are spending their money. It's just they're now spending it when they didn't last year.
So David, for Middletown, obviously people can be a little bit cynical about the future, and they're always a little resistant to change. And the question then is, what can we expect? Are there going to be jobs available, investment, economic opportunity? How is this going to change Middletown? What's going to happen for the better for this community as a result of the potential of this project?
I think there's a couple of interesting aspects of this. So the economics or econometrics in terms of what we do, we will have, we'll be able, when we finalize and we get through the pre-construction period, we'll be able to definitively say, this is how many jobs it's going to create. But when you look at this is a project that's going to bring thousands of permanent jobs into the community, either directly because of the project or indirectly because of what happens around it. The biggest part of what Middletown has going for it is it has a good, solid downtown. Now, a lot of that is vacant or underutilized retail space, this type of project will bring that and maximize those type of things for downtown. So not only will it be the jobs that you create, but let's say there's, probably 50 to 100 other businesses that start up in downtown area to service the people that will be coming in from all over the super regional area. We expect that to be millions of people that would never otherwise come to Middletown. So it's, they're going to employ 2, 3, 4 people each. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs in Middletown, as well as people, who are looking for that good, solid paying job going forward.
So our neighboring community, Hamilton, has been doing a project people are probably familiar with. It's called Spooky Nook, and it's a big redevelopment kind of on their riverfront, their downtown. They're very excited how it's bringing back or will bring back a lot of things, and there's a lot of investment there. So in a sense, is Middletown kind of in for something like that? Can we say that this will be complementary or competitive, or how will this be in relation to what's happening in Hamilton?
Well, it won't be competitive at all. I think it'll be extremely complementary. One of the things that we will unveil in October to the city council, and although the city council has had an executive session, we've had discussions to make sure that we're on the right track and that they like where we're going. But we have done certain things to take advantage of, really the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that will be going and traveling to Hamilton because of Spooky Nook. And I think it's one of those natural things to be able to say, you have something like that. What do people do when they go to a sporting event? Well, usually you're bringing your other kids with you. You have a lot of downtime. It is a great thing to be able to have a destination in which they go to in the evenings, during the day when they're waiting for that next tournament play, or they've been eliminated from a tournament. So we're really working to be, hey, we're just down the road, and this is where you go to entertain yourself when you're not doing the sports event.
Sounds fantastic. Obviously, we're very excited about everything that's gone on to this point. We're looking forward to move this thing forward. As far as that goes, kind of what do you see as the future in terms of schedule, both near term and longer term? How do you see this thing playing out?
Well, we've had really great response from local owners of properties that will be needed for this project, and they've been wonderful in working with them. We're wrapping up that process right now. We've had the vast majority of the properties already agree to the ability for us to acquire the properties that are needed for this type of large project, which is, it's not just a couple acres. This is a really big project. So we're wrapping that up. I think we're going to see that be done here in the next week or so, and then we'll be finalizing with the city kind of what the development services agreement is going to be over the next month. And that's why in October we'll be presenting to the council the full plan.
And then your hope is 22, we start to see things happen, or what do you see?
Yeah, I think we can absolutely be in the ground in 22.
Excellent. So any final thoughts for our residents here in Middletown to sort of what to look forward to?
Well, one of the things that I every community we go into, one of the questions I have is, why would you want to do this in my town? And it's sometimes hard for people when they live in a place to see really how special it is. But as you know, I've spent a lot of time in Middletown, and it is a wonderful place with wonderful people. That downtown is a treasure. It's hard sometimes for people to see that diamond in the rough, but when you cut that diamond so it catches the light, it'll shine. And that's really what's going to end up happening for Middletown and downtown. That's what they should expect. And I want to also say we're going to be very respectful of the architecture and everything that already is and exists downtown. But the biggest part is we're not going to only just bring in an entertainment district, but we're going to tie downtown to the river, and which is not done at all right now. And people will be able to come down, really enjoy the riverfront. and have a good time. So it's not just for people outside of Middletown. I think, it's a little bit, I live in the Twin Cities. In the Mall of America, the vast majority of people who go there aren't from the Twin Cities, but those of us who live there get to enjoy it as well. And that's what's going to end up happening.
Absolutely. So with that, I want to thank David Rachie very much, partner with Main Street Community Capital, hopefully soon to be a partner with the City of Middletown on one of the most exciting super regional entertainment district developments that certainly this area and the state of Ohio has seen for a very long time. So we're excited. We can't wait to hear more about it. And to the community, to the City of Middletown, folks, stay tuned.